Welcome to the Bridge of Two podcast. Should we say welcome to the Bridge of Two podcast?
Welcome.
Violently throws phone down.
Are we on? We started?
We're on, yeah, that whole 5 minutes was recorded.
Oh, well, welcome everybody. I am an author.
I don't even know if I'll use any of that.
Well, then just leave that intro in, but without any context.
He's an author.
Just I'm an author, just as far as anyone's aware.
Not a writer.
I have a pen name. I just won't tell you what it is.
No, you don't. I mean, your name? Whatever. I don't know. So we are back from Salt Lake City.
Actually, I'm sorry.
Utah. What?
Sorry. Why do people use pen names, like different names than their actual name? Is there a reason for it, Mr.
Well, it's like supposedly a thing about marketability of your name, like
really?
If your name was like really hard to pronounce or something, maybe, or
so people just change their name to.
Sometimes not all the time, and I'm that's probably that may be less common, or I mean now if your name is more I don't want to say exotic, but if your name is more exotic. If you're writing like a science fiction book and you're using like Hindu like world building or something like that, and your name seems Indian or whatever, it would probably or if it didn't seem Indian enough, it'd probably be smart to use that because like gives like a little bit of authority to.
Interesting. I just thought about someone at the convention.
Okay. I don't know if I said anything wrong there, but
someone at the convention was using one of their books had a pen name.
Well, what weren't they? They had written it with like two people had written it together.
Oh, that's right. I guess sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do that. Well, also another reason they do pen names is like, let's say you were going to write in a different genre, and let's say you've written a lot in this one genre, and they don't want to confuse people looking for these books, like with this person. So like J.K. Rowling writes under a pen name when she writes mystery.
So who's to say that all the books that we've read aren't just the same author written under a different pen name?
Every book?
Every book.
I don't know.
Every book's actually been written by Brandon Sanderson. And it's just all under pen names.
By Brandon
Like
Sanderson?
George R. R. Martin, not a real person. It's just Brandon. He gave up on Game of Thrones. That's why it's not been written.
Oh, okay. That's deep stuff. That's just deep stuff. Deep thoughts today. You're an author. Wait, did Brandon Sanderson write your notes from work?
Well, those aren't published. They're just legally binding.
Then you're not an author.
Huh.
That's the difference.
You have to be published to be an author.
Right. Yeah, you're a writer.
Would you not consider yourself an author?
I've had I've had one thing published.
Yeah, you don't count. That's not fair. Never mind.
And I'm about to be published, hopefully in a few weeks.
So the difference between an author and a writer is one that's been published and one that isn't.
I think so.
I feel like there's someone out there that would take offense to that.
Or I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a little too. Maybe if you are writing something and you're distributing it, you don't have to be published, but if you distribute it, then you're an author. Like, because then you authored that story.
Yeah. So like a fan fiction. Are those people authors?
I'd say they're authors because they're published on the site that it's published on the site that they're sending it. Or like if you have a blog, if you like published your if you had like a short story and you put it on a blog, then I'd say that's you've authored that short story.
Okay, but here's the real question.
What?
Graphic novels, are they authors or artists? If it's written by one person, done by one person, not by like multiple people. But which one is more important in that case?
I don't know.
All right, I've derailed this enough. Welcome everybody to the Bridge 2 podcast.
Just like deep thoughts today. I'm just exploring the mysteries of.
I've been off work for
writing.
1 day and I'm already just
on drugs.
No. Don't go starting rumors, man. Come on.
Okay. That's not a rumor.
Only a little bit. A drug is called life, man.
So what you been up to since coming back from the long journey?
Work, sadly. Not sadly. It's actually
a little bit.
It's actually been a good couple days of work. I'm actually not upset about it. It's been easier. So I've actually been able to read a lot. Finished Bands of Mourning. So glad I did my reread of those because I forgot a lot in them. So it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And I understand that you have also finished Bands of Mourning.
I did.
We should do an episode on like the Wax and Wayne series. Now that we're
absolutely, yeah.
Just the Wax and Wayne series in general, like the three,
the trilogy before Lost Metal. The trilogy
before Lost Metal.
Yeah, I'd be good to do that. We could do that maybe coming up or something.
Yeah, be on the lookout.
Be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so I finished that. Been doing a little bit of drawing, working on a character. I'm probably gonna start working on just a random backstory for him, and then send
different character than the one you've been working on.
Same one. I'll send it over to you. See what your thoughts are on it, Mister Author Man. Over here.
I still need to look at your notes in that document.
Don't ignore the latest one.
Why?
Because it was when we were talking about I misspoke and said cosmetic instead of Cosmere, and then you're like, we should name our thing that. So I wrote, and then it was just the cosmetic.
The cosmetic. No, that's what it is now.
It's the cosmetic.
The Cosmotalk.
But yeah, I actually want to show you I've got a little bit more of a costume design for him. Okay. And I had a cool idea that I'll tell you about later as well, as far as his armor goes. That works with his magical abilities. Okay. That I want to go over with you. That I meant to put in the thing, but I didn't yet because I wanted to draw it.
Sounds fun.
But yeah, so I've been thinking about that and been working on him. And then, like I said, I'm going to go into writing a little bit of a backstory for him and just kind of give it over to you, see what your thoughts are, and then work through it. Just because I feel like writing. If Dragonsteel did one thing for me, it was make me want to write more.
Yay.
And I've been writing a lot at work. Other than that, actually I have been doing a lot of writing. I wrote a 1,500 word essay in a day. I'm so proud of myself.
For school?
Yeah.
Nice.
Luckily it was on fentanyl, so I'm very much aware of how fentanyl works.
Fentanyl-based magic system.
Not because I do fentanyl, but because I'm allowed to administer it. Not a lot, just a little.
Is it synthetic? Because that's highly dangerous.
Fentanyl is synthetic.
That's just always synthetic?
It's a synthetic opioid, yeah.
Oh, right.
It's basically morphine in a sense, but synthetic and a lot stronger. Dosages are a lot smaller. No, I'm doing I did my essay on, it's a research essay, I did it on how nonsense this whole thing is going around that cops are overdosing by touching fentanyl in the field.
I haven't heard of that.
There's a big thing going around in the law enforcement. It's getting a little bit better now, but it's going around the law enforcement community, and just in general, that cops are, like, when they're doing drug busts and there's, like, white powder that's, like, fentanyl and they touch it, they're immediately overdosing. It's nonsense. It's not how fentanyl works.
So is that happening, or is it a rumor?
There are stories of it happening, but if you actually look at the stories and the symptoms provided, it's more of like a panic attack than an actual overdose. And I think it stems from the fear of fentanyl and from the fear that's been brought up by organizations like the DEA.
So you can't get a contact high from touching, like...
I think you could. It would just take a while. I mean, fentanyl can be given through skin. My mom's a good example. She wears a fentanyl patch.
Okay.
But those fentanyl patches last 72 hours, and they give a very small amount, and you need to have it on. For hers to work, she needs it to have it on for like almost 12 hours for her to start feeling any sort of effects. Oh. So touching it and then immediately overdosing right afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Not only that, but these people, I mean, the last story that I heard was they gave this guy like 4 doses of Narcan.
And did nothing.
And it did nothing. If one dose doesn't work, that's your clue that it's not an opioid overdose.
Huh.
As someone who has seen multiple overdoses and has administered Narcan to overdoses, Narcan works really fast.
Yeah.
On an opioid overdose. But that's besides the point. This is not fantasy or anything. That's just...
Could be.
So I wrote that. But a fentanyl-based magic system sounds fun. Other than that, Steph and I watched Sherlock Holmes the other night. The one with Robert Downey Jr.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one. I'm going to watch the second one soon.
It's good.
I think. That's a good movie.
I feel like the second one, I think, is my favorite of those two. It's just really good.
The aesthetic of it was so fun, especially after like reading
just the time period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it.
Very strong Wax and Wayne vibes. It's great.
Yeah, I remember when that was coming out. Those movies were coming out around the same time that the Sherlock TV show was going on. It was actually really fun because they're both really good adaptations of the material, in my opinion. And anyway, but so
other than that, though, I started The Lost Metal.
Yes, yeah.
I will not say anything about it. Don't worry. Other than you should read it soon.
Yeah, I want to. I saw something, which I don't know if it's a spoiler for Lost Metal already that's out there that I put about Trell.
Careful.
So
not that far.
I won't say anything. Well, but Trell's been mentioned in
Trell has been mentioned. Yes.
The Wax and Wayne books. They just don't know who it is or what.
But other than that, I mean, I plan on reading that, and then I have my next book lined up, which is by one of the authors we met at Dragonsteel, Clay Harmon, I believe his name is.
Shout out,
should
Clay.
Probably look that up, actually, just in case I
think you're right. I'm pretty sure.
Almost certain.
You're right.
I am correct. Yes, Clay Harmon.
The second.
Clay Harmon author is his Instagram. He released a book called...
It's Fires of something.
Ooh, Fires of Mira.
Yeah.
First book published. Plan on reading that next. He told me about it at the convention. It just seemed like a really cool premise and magic system. Yeah. So I'm going to give that a read next. I'm excited for it.
Maybe if he's up for it, we might have him on the podcast
after I finish it.
So we did talk to him. He said seemed open to being on.
So maybe be on the lookout for that. We'll see. At the very least, you'll get a small little review from me of the book because I plan on reading it and I'll talk about it a little bit. But other than that, I think that's about it for me. Not, the convention we did.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after the break. But yeah.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, I finished Bands of Mourning as well, and
I'm so excited you finished it so quickly.
Huh?
You finished it so fast. I was expecting another 2 weeks until you were finished.
I mean, from the time we got home that I finished it really fast. Well, yeah, you hit that Sanderlanche, and it's kind of like, okay, I got to finish this. And I feel like the chapters are shorter. They get shorter at the end because everything's moving faster. But they still need to be in their own chapters. So,
I will say that's how Lost Metal is. So far, the chapters are very short compared to the rest of the Wax Wayne series. The chapters are very short.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I really, Bands of Mourning, I think is probably my favorite of the books so far. Those of the three. And Wax is just an awesome character. I mean, Wayne is too. Like there's all the characters are really great, but to kind of put Wax up there in like the category of like, the leading character of a series of, like you got Kaladin, you got the other characters in Stormlight, you've got Vasher, and like he's just a good Brandon Sanderson leading character, like on par, with Kaladin.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
In fact, like I think I told you, I think that after reading, especially the second book, I think maybe he has a more, in some ways, more of a raw deal even than Kaladin. Yeah,
definitely, especially after that second book. Whew.
And it's just a more unique, just because of the nature too of the things going on with the shards on Roshar versus Scadrial. It's more complicated. Things are more. It kind of complicates things on Scadrial. Mm-hmm. But we can talk about that in another episode when we're talking about those books. But I also am reading a book, or you said you're going to pick that book up from Clay. I talked to Nick Martell at the conference and got his book and he signed it and talked a little bit about the episode where we talked about a magic system that's basically his magic system, and I forgot that it was his magic system. So that was fun to talk about that a little bit. And I started his book and enjoying it so far. I'm on chapter 3.
Oh, good.
Good way into chapter 3. And it's very interesting and nice change of pace, like different different author, different style.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely nice to kind of break up the Sanderson.
Yeah.
I do think coming up here soon, I'm going to switch to a non-fantasy book to kind of break up.
Whoa.
I know.
Like a sci-fi or?
No, I might read The Terminalist. If the show ends up being really good, I might try and check that out. Or
that's a series too.
I know.
Yeah.
That, or I might pick up the next Jack Reacher book.
Oh, okay.
I've read like the 3 or 4 of them at this point.
Changing genres.
Yeah, I like that genre. Just like, like Johan's book was very much kind of like in that similar vein, but more sci-fi.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy the suspenseful drama novels like that.
Right on.
So if The Terminalist ends up being good, I'll end up checking out the book. So,
other than that, still writing, and maybe my story might be up end of the month or beginning of next month. That's what I was told they're shooting for. So exciting. We'll see. But I'm still working on that, writing away.
I'm excited.
So I'm
excited. I read a little bit more on the plane of yours, actually.
Okay.
I think read next, like 24, I think.
Okay.
Episode 24.
I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, because there's kind of a little mini climax kind of thing.
And yeah, I know we're kind of getting somewhere. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll take a break.
Yes.
Right?
Hey, we'll take a small little break. Don't know just yet if we have anything to drink. We'll find out.
You'll find out when we come back on the Bridge of Two podcast.
Ba-bum.
We're back. We found a drink.
We did find a drink, actually, one that I did not know was in my fridge.
From Raleigh.
I do remember from Raleigh.
A local Raleigh beer.
A recommendation of Juwu himself.
Shout out to Juwu.
Actually, super shout out to Juwu real quick. Got to play a sold-out show at a pretty big venue the other night.
I saw that. It's pretty awesome.
He said it went fantastic. So
shouting his name
out. He's going to have some new stuff coming out, so check him out on SoundCloud if you like EDM music.
Juwu. That's Juwu.
Juwu.
Spelled like it sounds.
Literally.
Yeah, so we've got beer here. It's, what?
So we've got beer here.
It's called Hell Yes, Ma'am.
Dude, language.
I don't condone that, but I am going to read it. And now I'm going to read what it says on the can.
Oh, no.
We're a little rebel and rough house. A city that's a healthy heaping of southern grit topped with a touch of southern charm. Hell Yes, Ma'am is a tribute to Raleigh in the form of a dangerously drinkable Belgian Golden. We use Belgian Pilsner malt, organic cane sugar, noble hops, and a magnificently complex Belgian yeast that gives our Golden its dry, kicktail allure. We guarantee you'll be saying, Hell Yes, Ma'am, to another pint. Only way I could read it.
Well, let's give it a try. Straight from Raleigh.
All right, let's drinky. This rough tail. Or kicktail, whatever it is. Yeah. It's interesting.
It's not bad.
It's weird.
It has a bit of an IPA feel to it. And I think I'm not the biggest IPA fan. Oh, we're going to get Steph's thoughts now, too.
It says fruity and spicy on the front. And I do get a little bit of the fruitiness.
Thoughts?
It does have IPA vibes, for sure.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Is that not an IPA?
I don't.
No, it's a Belgian-style Golden.
Golden what?
IPA. I don't know.
It says that they use Belgian Pilsner malt. So, I don't know. Golden usually is like... When I think of Golden, I think of a Golden Ale.
Yeah, I usually do too. But I don't know, I definitely get IPA vibes from it.
I mean, Belgian style is kind of like more like Blue Moon or whatever.
You know how like your tongue has like different taste buds in different areas?
I do know
I feel
that.
like in the front of my mouth, it's really good. And then when I swallow it, in the back of my mouth, it's terrible.
Is it bitter? It's that one?
Yeah.
It does have a bit of a bitter taste to it.
the front of my mouth is the part where it goes wrong for me. It's like, I don't know, something not right on the front.
Kind of just goes wrong in all of my mouth.
Sorry, Raleigh Brewing.
Wow. We said enough negative things.
It's just not my cup of tea. Josh loves it. I remember Josh telling me that.
I mean, the can is pretty.
Jew said that he loved it.
Shout out to Jew. Jew likes it. Oh man, I'm like dripping off my mustache.
Salt on your mustache. I didn't want to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know how much more I'll drink of that, but we'll see. So we went to the Cosmere.
We went to the Cosmere.
They're literally, all the planets were there.
They were. Threnody, Scadrial, Roshar, Taldane.
Nalthus.
Mm-hmm.
Did we name them all?
Cell. I always forget about Cell. I need to do a reread of that book soon.
Yeah, I need to reread that one at some point too. I feel like knowing, like reading the whole thing, knowing where it's all going, I'll appreciate and get more out of it the second time, because I just kind of like wasn't sure where things were going for a long time until until you hit the Sanderlanche, and then it's like, okay, this is really good, a lot of good payoff, everything kind of comes together. But yeah,
I love that Sanderlanche is just a thing that everyone's just coined as the end of his books.
Yeah, I mean, he's been writing for a long time. Like,
I loved him talking about his old books that he's never published.
Yeah.
Like, that was really him and Dan Wells during their podcast.
Their trunk novels.
That
was funny. He was talking about there was like a guy with a metal carrot for a weapon or something.
Yes.
That Brandon had.
Which is hilarious.
He was trying to do like kind of a funny, like, he described what he was going for, but I didn't actually know the reference. But anyway, it was funny to imagine that.
But anyway, yes, we went to the Cosmere. We recently got back from Salt Lake City, Utah. We visited the Dragonsteel 2022 con, or Expo.
Yep.
Depending on who you talk to, whether it's Dan Wells or
it's a convention.
Brandon Sanderson.
It's not Expo.
It could be either or. Drexpo does sound way better, though.
I think I'd side with Dan Wells that it sounds like something you have a prescription for. If Drexpo gives you...
It probably is a prescription. It probably is a Drexpo.
Yeah.
Although it also kind of sounds like an expo for Drex.
I mean, Dragonsteel is just such a cool name. Like, you shouldn't shorten it.
That is true.
You should always say Dragonsteel when you're naming that convention, because it's such a cool
It just shouldn't
name.
even be called Dragonsteel Con. It should just be Dragonsteel 2022. Dragonsteel 2023.
Yeah, I think that works
Dragonsteel
too.
2024. Anyway.
At the minimum.
We went, we saw, we did.
We conquered,
we returned. Well, it conquered us, but...
we conquered it right back.
Dang straight.
Straight down the face.
But 2-day convention thrown by Mr. Sanderson and his team at Dragonsteel.
Yep.
Bunch of different panels. I liked this one because I've never been to a con, so I don't really have too much to reference it for.
Right, me either.
But this one was I really liked this one, and I think he nailed what he was going for. It was definitely meant for, it seemed like, authors and artists.
Yeah.
Like, you had a whole bunch of different panels. And now, obviously, Cosmere, too. I mean, it's Brandon Sanderson, So you had different panels throughout the 2 days, and a lot of them were, you had some that had to do with the Cosmere, silly stuff, funny stuff, Cosmere Super Fight, how to survive the Cosmere. But then you also had panels on how to write characters or editing in the traditional route. But then you also had, art panels, like there was just regular artist panels where the artists for the Dragonsteel came up and talked, or artist critiques, people got to send in their artwork and to critique it,
Yeah.
So it was very much centered around authors and artists on top of just the Cosmere in general.
Right.
Which is so cool, because I know a lot of cons or comic books, movies tend to be the main focus at this point now, video games. Mm-hmm. It was really cool to have one focused on those two things. And not just authors and artists, like big name authors who've published a bunch of books, but like there were a lot of authors there that even were talking on panels who've only released 1-2 books. They had a whole setup in the main area for authors to sell their books at like that's where I met Clay, was in this area where this is his first published book, and he was just trying to sell it.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to give that Brandon Sanderson, had these people come in and give these people these opportunities to sell these books. And to talk and to do, it was just really fun for me. I really liked that aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, there was a lot of the artists. I don't know if all of them were, but most of the artists, were artists that had done art for the Cosmere, related to the Cosmere, but they're artists that, Brandon is, bringing these people because he knows bringing them to the convention is a place where they will do well because they're people that are coming are people that want that kind of art, and stuff like that. So then in turn, those people are, benefiting from being involved with Brandon and doing art. Even like, for example, Katie Payne, who, I follow and like a lot of her art and a lot of what she does, though. I mean, like she's done some officially licensed stuff for Brandon and things like that. Or maybe all of her stuff is officially licensed. I'm not speaking from authority of like understanding that dynamic, but I know that a lot of like stuff that she's selling is stuff that she just did for, like, she has a drawing, of a scene from Rhythm of War that it was, I'm pretty sure, done for like the 17th Shard, big fan community for Brandon Sanderson. Like they commissioned her to do that, and then she's able to sell it, And so like Brandon allows people to, the way he views like his writing and people in the community, he views it as like, if you create something of value to the community, he's okay with you. Like there's like guidelines and stuff. And I think it has to go through him in terms of like communicating and getting his approval, but he's okay with you financially benefiting from that.
Yeah. Using his IP to do.
Now I don't know how this is probably going to get more complicated when the movies start coming out.
And it's probably complicated to an extent now, but he seems to thrive on people using his stuff to not necessarily financially benefit. What I noticed with a lot of the authors is a lot of them, including the ones who are even who have work in like the Leatherbound stuff like that. There's a lot of authors that have work in Leatherbounds, or there's 4 different authors that have a bunch of stuff that's going to be in the secret novels.
Yeah.
Each book kind of has its own artist, and it's going to be a bunch. If you've got the Kickstarter, there's going to be a bunch of artwork illustrations in the Kickstarter versions. But what I noticed, especially talking to these different authors, is a lot of them are just artists. They were doing their own thing. They were just vibing, drawing their stuff. And basically Brandon Sanderson was like, I really like their artwork. Or the art director for Dragonsteel, when they got bigger, was like, I really like this artwork. What do you think, Brandon? And Brandon's like, let's get him on. I want to see if we can get him on board. And so I think a lot of that stuff too is, it's like Katie Payne's probably one where like, I think she's probably just a genuine fan of the Cosmere.
Right.
And now she just did artwork. Brandon was like, I love this. Come here. You can sell your stuff. And it's how this was like, I think there's 2 people on the secret novels that are being done. The artists on there don't work for Dragonsteel. They're not, this is the first time they've ever worked for Dragonsteel as far as I'm aware. They just found them, loved their artwork. Yeah. Gave them the script and was like, get going.
Yeah, he is just extremely generous with his platform.
It's really cool for someone like me who I'm getting more and more into artwork and staying in artwork, trying to whatever, to think that like there could be a point at a time where I could do something for the Cosmere. It really gives hope to people,
especially
like
the
me
bigger it gets.
Yes, like there's definitely hope for people like me who are newer, or who would like to do stuff like that, to be able to I mean, just imagine being like, hey, we really like artwork. You want to come do something? Yeah. Definitely. There are people there that were like, yeah, I'm going to have a piece in the next Leatherbound. Didn't the one person we meet who didn't even have a panel or didn't even have a thing, she said that she has something coming in?
Oh yeah, was that the author that we just happened to be in line with?
Yeah. Then she did say that she's going to have one Words of Radiance. Yeah. So she's going to have one Words of Radiance.
Yeah, you're right. In the Words of Radiance, Leatherbound.
Leatherbound. She's got one, and like she didn't even have anything there to sell. She was just the Cosmere fan.
And she like fan. Her design for Lift
is the official
is like the canon. For, like they use that when they created the miniature for Lift, which I love.
I'll pull up her account real quick.
And so like that kind of thing, basically. it's like it goes back to Brandon has such a great relationship with his fan community.
Absolutely.
And that like relationship, it feeds on, like they feed into each other, like Brandon is just so generous with like taking things that fans do, come up with and putting it out there. And then that just kind of like feeds the community to be like, just, because they got the approval of him in so many things that they come up with and do. Did you have something?
Yeah, that one artist is Lamary in the Cosmere is her Instagram. LAMAERY _in_the _Cosmere.
Yeah.
Check out her stuff. It's pretty phenomenal.
I love her. She does panels. Like she'll do like a read through of a Cosmere book, and then she'll do panels like almost like comic panels of the scenes from it, and some of them are just so amazing, so gorgeous, capture the intensity of those scenes so well. I love her Oathbringer stuff, and
her style too is just
it's
I really like her style. So yeah, give her a look, give her a check out. You'll probably end up loving it.
But yeah, so we met her. We met Katie Payne. You bought some like bookmarks and stuff.
Which loving the bookmarks. I'm using one right now for Rhythm of War, or for Lost Metal, and I just love opening up a book and seeing some cool artwork from the Cosmere in my Cosmere related book.
Yeah.
No, those will be used. I plan on making a shelf here soon, since I got the Warbreaker leatherbound. Making a shelf, I think, above my computer, and I'll end up putting the bookmarks that I'm not using up there displayed, because I really do like
nice.
her artwork is really good too.
Yeah, that's cool that you can display that stuff. Like it's that good, to be on a bookmark. So we talked a little bit about the art stuff that was there, which it is awesome that there was like these different tracks, the artist track, writing, and then like general kind of Cosmere stuff. There was also like a fan track. There was like, going back to the whole concept of like how he and obviously they needed panels, they needed stuff, but to go and have, just like, there's this one podcast, Words and Whiskey podcast, that our podcast page follows, just because they do, they've been doing some Cosmere read-throughs for their podcast. So, I follow them, and sometimes we'll like share stuff they post and stuff. They just, which smart on their end, they just did a read-through. And I'm sure they were probably, it had nothing to do with necessarily trying to get to Dragonsteel, but they happened to be doing a read-through of Bands of Mourning, and they concluded it. They did their concluding episode of it. They were able to do it at the... Oh, yeah, that's right. They had their own room and their own little segment to do that live recording of that final read-through episode of Bands of Mourning. And and then they had TikTok Cosmere. They had a Cosmere TikTok panel where they have different Cosmere influencers. Oh, that's right, yeah, that were on there, and just really cool.
They had a couple different podcasts going too throughout the days, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you're right. There was another podcast there as well that I'm not as familiar with, but it's just cool that seeing people that I follow on Instagram that literally some of them started in the last year. Yeah. And that they are, they were there and
gosh, what are we doing
their
wrong?
Stuff. I know. Well, some of them the Cosmere, it's a Cosmere junkie. Cosmere Considered, maybe. There's a couple of them that were there that they just they post so much stuff all day.
Yeah, we need a social media influence.
I get overwhelmed by that stuff. I get overwhelmed by trying to garner views and likes and trying to figure out what's gonna be trending and stuff.
Well, part of that it's just on the small little tangent. Part of that, it makes it not as fun. I kind of just like sitting down and talking instead of trying to worry about what's gonna be popular, and then focusing on we gotta post this on Instagram.
Right. Yeah, that's why I like that our podcast, we just we put it out there, we record it, we advertise it to a degree that we are comfortable with, you know.
I mean, if we blew up, if we got more people to listen, that'd be great. But
Right.
I don't want to have, and this comes from a conversation I have with my brother Ju, where he felt he had to step away from social media because he was getting too focused on how am I gonna post this to make it look right? How am I gonna get enough people to listen to my music instead of just making the music?
Right.
And so he actually had to take a step back.
Right, because
to just focus on the writing the music, not worry about social media, and not do all that. And I agree. It's just like sometimes you get too focused on the social media aspect instead of just doing.
Right.
We started this podcast because we just do this anyway, and it's fun. But that tangent aside, that's
Well, I mean, I could tie it back to the whole journey before destination thing. It's like the destination would be, like, oh yeah, it'd be great to like blow up or whatever, but the journey matters, and like how you get there matters. And, if your mental health takes a huge dive because in the pursuit of that, then, it's, you're not doing something right, so, anyway, but happy for those people. And and for them that they're able to,
oh, absolutely,
that they're able to pursue that and kind of like go hard on it, and
that's great for them. And it's good to see that they've gone
do well,
that they're doing well, and honestly, I might end up checking out the podcast.
I didn't get to tell anyone about my Into the Unknown cover from Frozen 2, the Into the Cosmere. I was like imagining like
we've got to
Brandon had me sing this on stage. That'd be crazy.
We have to do a small little clip, and then tag Brandon in it,
maybe,
and post it on the Purge of 2 page, if you wouldn't mind having your face and voice.
Oh, my face and voice,
or just at least your voice.
Yeah, I've thought about like how to package that.
We should just do a whole music video to it. I
think that'd be hilarious. It would be a lot of work, but
I wish I was better in animation. I could like animate it.
That would probably be what would put it over the top.
We should do it. I could probably manage a small clip.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later. 2 years from now.
So I did some of the writing track stuff, unfortunately I did not get into the editing tips and tricks. Like Brandon's editors were in there, and I think maybe Tim Akers was in there on the panel as well. Another author that has the same part of the same writing literary agency, not a part of it, but represented by the same literary agency as Brandon, Jabberwocky. And I didn't get in there because, well, it was like the second hour of the convention. And I don't know if like obviously I know that the seating was mostly full and that's why they closed the doors, but there was a session later on, a panel later on where similar, like most of the chairs were taken up in the room, but people were just like sitting in the back. And I was like, I would have totally sat in the back for that.
I think they kind of were trying to keep things limited, and then they realized like there's a lot of people here, we can't do that. And so they started letting people sit in the back.
I almost wondered if it was just one worker that maybe got a little bit overwhelmed, and
that might have been because
what am I supposed to do here? Like,
I think that was the second, like you said, like the second hour of the.
There were a lot. They were turning a lot of people away, so it could have gotten a little bit ridiculous if they hadn't closed the doors. So
that is true.
I'm not sure, but yeah, that was a bummer. But I got into some other good ones. I went to a live editorial critique with several authors and a agent assistant named Valentina, who I actually got to talk to as well at the Jabberwocky booth. So they had some people had sent in some things that they were going to get critiqued, I could have sent something in, which it may not have gotten picked, but
they did it for the art stuff too.
I wish I had known about that.
I would have been far too terrified.
Really?
Because they did that in the art panel too. The first art panel they did that first hour was an art critique.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
I saw some of that,
but that would have terrified me.
Yeah,
I'm far too nervous for that stuff.
Yeah, I have stuff that's enough, like finished enough that it's like whenever you finish something, you're like, this is kind of as good as I can imagine it for the most part, and so you want that feedback. You want to, want to hear someone say, because you're like, just it's outside your imagination.
I'd rather sit in my blissful ignorance of thinking that it's decent enough.
Well, anyway, so that was interesting hearing them give their critiques on that and helped, think through, kind of like try to think through some of my stuff. And then I also did another panel I really liked. It was about traditional public. I think it was called Intro to Traditional Publishing. And there were several authors. They were all authors that had debuted recently. So like one of them was a screenwriter who worked on the show Legion in the writer's room with Legion. And there was another, I forget what the other show was, but he was also apparently in a writer's room for Brandon for like a Way of Kings and Mistborn TV, for like TV shows for Way of Kings and Mistborn. I don't know if that was like a thing that fell through. When I heard him say it, I was like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be hearing this. Like, but he just broke in with Jabberwocky on his book, and then Clay was in there, Clay Harmon.
Yeah.
We're talking about his book, and then there was a young lady in there as well. I can't remember her name, but she is like still waiting for her book to debut because just of the way the scheduling of like release dates is, it's still not. It's not going to release. Actually, I don't think it's going to release until 2024, maybe.
Oh, man, that's a long time.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's 2024 or 2023.
Oh, you would think 2023. 2024 seems really far, especially if the book's finished.
Yeah, I just remember thinking, like, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is 2023. And then the other person was, I think, a Jabberwocky employee that was in there, too. And yeah, it was just interesting and encouraging hearing them talk about, their journey to get published and how many rejections and, how many books they wrote, and very similar, a lot of them, to Brandon. They're writing like 10, 12 books, One of the most interesting things was Clay Harmon talking about how he queried Josh, Brandon's agent, and got kind of a good feedback, but it was like, let's work on these things. And then like Clay would work on them, get back with Josh, and then Josh would like give him more things to work on. And maybe it may have been a little more involved than that, but like he was working with Josh for over a year before Josh took him on it as like actually took him on as and to represent him.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. From one perspective, like he was talking about how he was stressed,
Yeah, I mean,
like a little bit stressful, like, am I ever going to get taken on? But at the same time, like knowing that you can submit something and like maybe there's a time whenever it's like, I know this isn't perfect, but I'm going to submit it. And then knowing that, and maybe not, I don't know how many other like agents would have done this, but knowing that, Josh was like, working with him, telling him what he could change and what he could do, like for a year on it, that's kind of like encourages me. It's like, okay, maybe I should just start submitting it might not be a bad, or at least get a little closer,
or maybe
on my manuscript. But
maybe once you finish, like get like a finished kind of copy of it, then doing a query. Right, that way you have like a finished work.
Yeah, I definitely am not. It's not finished yet, so.
But you still better give it to me.
But I'm close.
You better give it to me before you give it to anyone else. Well, you and me, and I know you have a few other people, like your brother and stuff like that. Your brother-in-law, or
I mean, you probably have one of the ones. You probably would read it like the quickest though out of anyone.
I will drop. I don't care if it's Brandon Sanderson. I will drop what I'm doing and read it, unless I'm in the middle of a Sanderland. So time it perfectly.
I mean, that's another thing, and I'm glad for this. But that's another thing about this convention that, like you said, just the focus of it and. Of it being like artist focused and hearing people talk about how they came to get published and things like that, it really made me get that bug again.
Yeah.
For wanting to finish this my draft for my novel and wanting to start actually querying people and getting like feedback and rejections and things like that. Cause you can get sometimes helpful feedback from rejections.
Absolutely.
A lot of times people will give, feedback that's not just like rejected, so that process can be helpful as well, and I haven't gotten to that process yet. So and it also like encouraged me to like, I'm gonna probably query Jabberwocky, because they seem like a really good agency,
if nothing else, thank you, Brandon Sanderson and the Dragonsteel team for instilling the motivation and desire back
Yeah.
into like me and you to continue on with creative pieces, such whether it's art or writing or both.
Yeah.
You know,
That's very needed. Whenever you're trying to, whenever you want, something that you're just kind of like, it's a hobby and it's a kind of a little bit of a dream kind of thing, and you want to take it further. You need that community. You need to see that community and see the people in that community and hear their stories.
absolutely.
Because so many of them are like, I never thought this would happen, and then this, happened, almost like it sometimes seems like happenstance, but things just come together at the right time, and then all of a sudden people are selling books. Like, I talked to Nick Martell, which I alluded to a little bit earlier, and he talked about he didn't talk about, I've heard him talk about, because Brandon had him on for live stream after he was like breaking in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's how I heard about him, is Brandon had him on as a guest on live stream. He's got the same agent as Brandon. Josh picked, said he would represent him and helped him get published. And now he's on his third book. He just finished a trilogy. So now he's like completed a series, and he's still going.
So I was going to ask that, because I was looking on his Goodreads page and it said that he's got 3. So he's finished that trilogy. He
just has published the final book in the trilogy.
I'll have to read it, especially with it being a completed trilogy. I'm going to have to check it out, especially since I did look at the summary of one of it. It looked interesting. So I'll have to check it out.
And it's funny. I was telling him, I was like, we had an episode about magic systems, because at the time, we had business cards of our podcast with us, but we were like, I was scared to hand them out, or like
I handed out like maybe 3.
But even before we started handing them out, I was like, I don't know. And I was talking to Nick, and I was like, yeah, we have a podcast. I didn't even mention the name. My brother-in-law and I, and we had an episode about magic systems, and we started thinking about, what if there was a magic system where you had to burn a memory to use it, like instead of burning metal or something. And I was like unconsciously channeling his magic system from his book, because I had heard about it on the live stream like months or a year ago.
A thief.
Yeah. And then we were talking about the implications of it, and like how, like, could you trust the narrator? They'd be an unreliable narrator because they'd be burning their memories, and and he's like, oh yeah, that's a big thing in the book. He's like, don't trust Michael Kingman. Like, I don't know why people trust him, because he's not a reliable narrator.
I'm gonna have to.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, we completely ripped this off. But then I was like, okay, I need to buy this book, because now I need to see how like all this, how he like fleshes all that out. And so, I bought it, and he signed it, and gave me, like, he wrote a quote in there and from the book, and I started the book, and it's good. I'm pretty hooked on it.
Funny enough, speaking of things that we've talked about, not necessarily on this podcast, but
just real quick, and we did go back and we did give him a card, and he was so awesome. He was like, I was literally, I don't know, I doubt he'll listen to this, but Nick, if you're listening, I was literally just like, I'm going to give him our podcast card just to be like, hey, here's our podcast if you're curious or interested. And then he was like, oh, here, let me write down my email address and I'll come on, just shoot me an email. And I'm like, what? That's super cool.
Which we should definitely do. Maybe I'll go to read his first book. We'll see.
It's up to you. Yeah.
But speaking of magic systems, stuff like that, with me, our character that we've kind of thought up recently.
Yes,
I was talking with
cosmetic
Clay.
Character.
I was talking with Clay. His magic system, not super similar, but his magic system in his book deals with the periodic table and using the different elements on the periodic table. Yeah, and it definitely gave me hints of like, oh, we were just talking about this, but I didn't talk to him afterwards, so I didn't steal anything. No, but that was just interesting too. That's also kind of, he was telling me about that. And I was like, okay, that sounds really cool, and it might give me some good ideas. Yeah. So, and then Clay was just a very, very genuinely nice guy. We left after my wife was like, he was so nice.
He was. Well, and I think, nothing about Nick before I go back to Clay. Nick, I literally thought he was someone that looked like Nick Martell. I was like, you look a lot like Nick Martell, because he was right in front of Nick Martell's books. I did, and he's like, I am Nick Martell. Like, he was like, I am Nick Martell. Like,
Amazing.
like he wanted me to know, like, hey, I'm the guy. I'm Nick Martell. I'm the author.
That's
and I was like, oh, you are? I was like, that guy looks really like Nick Martell.
That's amazing.
Because he was right in front of Nick's books, and I was like, oh, that guy looks so much like Nick Martell. But like I was remembering him from how he looked in live stream.
Mm-hmm.
His haircut's a little different. So that was part of it, I think. But and also just like seeing someone in person. There's just something about you see someone
Absolutely.
on a. It's just like your brain doesn't completely accept that you're like in the same room with the person you saw on the TV or whatever.
Well, that's kind of the experience with Sanderson himself, because we both did get to
meet him.
Oh
man,
get
like
our
fever
books
dream,
signed.
right?
Yeah, get our books signed by him. And I'm telling you, part of it was because it was late, and we just spent the entire day at the conference. But I mean, we did get to meet Sanderson. We did get to get books signed by him.
Well, let's tell that story, and let's like save that for the last story.
That works. But I was just pointing out that also just felt very kind of surreal.
Yes, definitely. Well, and I saw him like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
At one point, I was by there's like a little area where you could go in. It was like a Dragonsteel store, which was just like tables blocking off an area where you could go in, buy stuff, or not buy stuff, pick up stuff, and then get on a line to buy them. And I was like on the other side of it, and all of a sudden the doors of this other room open, and Brandon Sanderson walks into the room because he was getting ready to go to the live recording of their podcast that we were about to go to. And he just walks in, and there was literally like no one in between me and him. And it's like 8 feet away, and I'm just like, I just was like, out of body. Like I'm like watching, not watching myself, but I'm just like not moving, not like doing anything. I was like, don't rush up on him. Don't rush up on him, and he walked by, and then like some people noticed him, and then he started like waving, saying, hey, everyone, but it was just weird. It's just like, I cannot believe this guy just walked by. So, but yeah, so, Clay, I just kind of speaking to my experience, like you met him first and like talked to him about the book, but then when Steph showed up and she was like, you guys need to be handing out these cards. And then we were like, okay, let's do this.
You're right. And
then you went over and talked to him and like told him about the podcast. And yeah, he was just like really just kind of down to earth, like willing to possibly go on. And he said he'd like just done his first podcast like
not
recently or something, which is really cool to just think like, the line between someone who's like making it, or at least getting their shot, because like I even asked him, I was like, how's it going? And he's like, I'm not even sure exactly because of the way like traditional publishing works, if they like,
it was like certain, like you said, Barnes & Noble, for example, they said like bought a certain amount of those books,
right?
And if they don't sell, they give them back. Kind of, is I think what he said.
Right, and yeah, and that like kind of hurts because it's kind of like a cyclical thing where if you aren't selling your book, then they're gonna like less of it's gonna be in stores, and so it's kind of like it feeds on itself. The cycle feeds on itself because it's like then you don't have as much reach. But anyway, so he didn't say that was happening. He just said he didn't know.
He
it was too early
until it's
the book just came out in July, I think.
I think is what he said.
So it's still kind of early for him to know exactly. But yeah, just hearing that, talking to him a little bit, it's like that line between someone getting their shot and being on the outside, like trying to get in. It's very a very thin line, a very thin barrier, not thin barrier, but it's just like there's just not a lot. It's like he's trying just like I am. He's just a little further down the line.
Absolutely.
And like a lot of people are. And then Nick's just a little further than that. He's published 3 books now. But I'm sure he's still like, I saw he just went to a conference in Glasgow.
Yeah, I saw that
in Scotland. So like, I think he's still, seems like he's still trying to make sure he's reaching out, yeah, and not like settling down and being like, I published 3 books and so rest on my laurels or whatever. But very cool seeing these people. Another guy I talked to is Tim Akers, who I bought I had a book from him called Night Watch, and it's a book. It's kind of a portal fantasy. You know, it's like maybe it's not a portal fantasy. Portal fantasy. He's at a Ren fair, like he's at like a medieval, like realistic medieval fair, and dressed up and everything. And then all of a sudden something happens, and then he's like swept up into this real fantasy, medieval fantasy kind of world that he realizes is like exist sort of in like another dimension kind of thing, I think. And he's got 2 books in that series out, and I bought it way back when I somehow I don't remember how I started following him, but I started following him on social media, and he's just like really cool person to follow. Like he'll just talk about his writing process, talk about things he's working on. He'll talk about traditional publishing and concerns he has about it. He has a lot of really good insights on traditional publishing. And so, you know, meeting him in person was really cool. It was a really quick meeting, but, you know, he was really excited to sign my book. And just having that personal, in-person connection is cool. Because I also have, you know, something of his I may, if I can get some time to read it, I can give him some feedback on something he's may be working on in the future. But, yeah. So, you know, cool making those connections.
Absolutely.
And making everything feel a little closer. Really cool stuff there, for sure.
I mean, then you got that. You know, on top of all that, you had just the Brandon Sanderson stuff. Him and Dan Wells did their podcast live for everybody.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun to sit and listen to. They're hilarious. They talked about. I didn't get the second part because I had left to go to the store when there weren't as many people.
That was Q&A. So they did like Trunk Novels was the main thing.
Where Trunk Novels was such a fun episode, and hearing all that's just fun. Even for me, who I'm not a writer, and I don't plan on publishing a book, but it's still fun to hear and like very encouraging to hear. Like even people like Brandon Sanderson who wrote 5 novels before publishing a book, or however many it was. 13. I'm sorry.
He published his 6th.
He published his 6th, but he wrote 13 before
he had written 13. Okay. Yeah.
So like hearing that is like, that's encouraging. I mean, it's encouraging and also not encouraging because you're like 13 novels, that's a lot. But also at the same time, it's just like, well, you know, even Brandon Sanderson took a while to get where he needed to be. And Dan Wells is the same way with, I don't know how many he wrote, but
I think they both published their 6th. Like I know their 6th published.
But then it was really cool to also hear about some of the other stories that Sanderson had thought of, and Dan Wells. Like it was just fun.
That also is like encouraging, you know, too, whenever you hear like someone having a crazy idea and like doesn't really make sense or whatever. And
so that was a fun part of the thing, to go sit down, listen to those guys talk and everything like that. You know, Dan Wells had a D&D session basically. Yeah. That I think he played in. He wasn't the DM, he played in it.
Yeah, you're right. I like peeked in for a minute.
And it just wasn't I didn't understand everything that was going on. It was more like, I think it was like a charity event type of thing too. Yeah. So I was just like, I think that was when there was either another panel going on, or I was really like in the drawing mood. So I went to the writing room and drew. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, that was a tough part about it, is there was so many things going on, and some things were going on simultaneously with others. And so you did have to kind of pick, like, you know, and I think like that D&D thing or tabletop, it was a tabletop game. It wasn't D&D per se. Yeah. But they, you know, that was running for like 3 hours, I think. So, you know, there was, you know, lots of different sessions going on, like the traditional publishing one was going on during that, you know, so, but yeah.
Yeah, so you had that going on. Then you also had, I mean, at the end, later that night when the con was technically over, Brandon did a charity magic event thing, and he live streamed that, which was hilarious. I mean, they like took his chair from him, and he had to speak it like Yoda for a little bit, use only his thumbs and pinkies. It was just fun stuff like that. It was just definitely a silly thing. What was really cool is Brandon released, I think in his latest weekly update on YouTube, they raised like $30,000 for charity.
Yeah.
He's matching it.
Oh wow.
He's gonna match it. So instead of it being 30, it's now 60-something thousand. Which is just cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember if they said what charity they're going to.
Well, I don't know if it's Lightweaver, because he has his own like charity foundation called Lightweaver, so it could be that.
I know too that Howard Lyon did a live painting session at the paint, which I wish I would have gone to.
Did they auction that off?
They auctioned it off. at Lightweaver for the Lightweaver charity.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, they like.
It was cool seeing their stuff, their artwork.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool to see their stuff because to realize like they're all traditional artists. I mean, he does his like some of the paintings that he's like a lot of the paintings he's done in like the leather-bound stuff like that. He traditionally paints them, and then he goes over later on does digitalized stuff. I think with it.
Oh, okay.
One of the artists that has posted some stuff. He just travels and does environmental work. Like he'll go sit at like a street corner and paint the street corner, and then he's used all that basically that visual library he's created to then make fantasy and sci-fi stuff. He did stuff for Skyward, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. That's cool.
So that was cool. But then also on top of just the convention, the very end of it was the Lost Metal release party.
Yeah.
Which Brandon came up and
did a little like
talked forever. Man talks forever.
I wonder how long it was. Like, not in like a denigrating way, but like I remember he said it would be like 10 to 15 minutes. I'm sure it was longer.
Had to be.
But it's cool to just to hear him talk like kind of a little bit off the cuff and a little bit about like just sharing his thoughts. Like he kind of like said, this is what I'm thinking about right now. And just kind of went into, talking about the series, the Wax and Wayne series and all that,
Not only that, he
plus the trivia at the beginning.
The trivia was pretty cool. They did a good job with that because that was difficult. But then not only that, a big part of he had a little speech initially, then he did a Q&A and all that, which his Q&As blew me away. It's the first time actually I never really listened to the Q&As.
Yeah, they had the spoiler Q&A like a little bit earlier or like the day before.
A little less of a spoilery.
Yeah, less spoilery.
But it was really fun to hear them do a Q&A. I haven't listened to any of his Q&As that he's posted. Because there was still, I think when those were coming out, I still haven't finished all the books, and there was still stuff I didn't, whatever. So I didn't want spoilers. This man is so quick with it. Like, it's almost like he doesn't even think, he just knows it all. It is mind-boggling. It
is like he just understands the fundamentals of his own world so much that for the most part he can just kind of think about like he just like knows the way it works. So if you ask him a question, it just goes into the old like like mathematical system of like that he has worked out in his head, and he just is like tells you, yeah, that works, or no, that doesn't work. And more than that, but it was definitely impressive how unfazed he could be by questions, especially like off the wall questions where like if so and so and so and so and we're all in a room, who would shoot this person first, or whatever. Like, just he understands his characters so well.
Yeah, like if I didn't know better,
and the differences between them, like Wayne and Lopin. Like you, at first blush, you think Wayne and Lopin are like just very similar characters, but then
they each have their intricacies in there.
Yeah, he's talking about how like, well, Wayne knows how to read a room. Like Lopin will just say the first thing that comes into his mind. He doesn't like he's a little bit like socially unaware, But Wayne like knows how to read the room, even though Wayne says really off the wall things too. And so that was like an interesting insight, into how two characters that you think are like
similar, are really
very similar. It's like, oh yeah, there is enough of a difference there that they would handle that situation differently,
So just all that stuff was really fun to hear. And then obviously you had his speech at the release party of, basically a long-winded speech to say the gloves are off. Cosmere is
he was just like dressing it up so he could say that.
Yes, and basically. it was just from now on, it is Cosmere. You're going to get...
Yeah, from now on, like the Cosmere connections and the crossover is not going to be... It's not going to be in the background. It's not going to be subtext. It's going to be very front and center.
Yes.
And that is really exciting.
And he said that is starting with the Lost Metal. And having only been 80 pages in it, it's very upfront in the Lost Metal.
Yeah.
It just kind of started where I'm at. But there's things that I'm just like, oh yeah, wow, this has not been in any book before.
Right.
It is very forthcoming, the links to the cosmos.
Don't spoil it, but just tell me, are there like different characters?
This isn't spoilers, not that I know of yet.
Okay.
There is just
what they're talking about.
There's talks of, and you'll know it's very quickly in the book. So it's like 80. I just read the chapter. It's 80. So 80 pages in. It's one. There's a thing where they're just like, "Yep, this is happening." So,
well, I loved it. Like that in Bands of Mourning, they got into the details of just some like very detailed theory about ferrochemical stuff, like with the unkeyed, which because it was like very important later in the book, but like metal mines and like what if you could use a metal mine that was like anyone could pick up and use that ability or whatever. Anyway, but
some of that, I mean, reading that, I'm like, I went to paramedic school and learned about medicine, but this is over my head. This is like, talking about like being able to imbue investiture into something, so
and
that
like
you
connection,
allowing it to be able to be used by anybody else, because it takes away the investiture part and the identity part, and I'm just like, oh my god,
yeah.
I'll just deal with a heart attack instead.
Easier to understand. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, seeing all that and being a part of it. Also the readings, like he did a reading.
That's right, the reading.
During the spoiler Q&A, the first one he did a reading. There was a little more spoilery for Stormlight 5. And then he did a Stormlight 5, a pretty good long Stormlight 5 reading during the Lost Metal release event.
For the flashbacks.
But it was less spoilery because it was a flashback of a character.
It wasn't really spoilery, but it was definitely, I mean, it's cool. Yeah,
it was definitely like more like insight into this character's backstory that you're like, you had no clue about. And also like made their like history more tragic. But definitely does look really cool getting those readings, I just love the one with Wit in it from the day before, the previous day.
I just love everything of Wit in it.
Yeah.
But that one was a good one.
So
that was a very good one.
It just makes me hype for Stormlight 5, which I can't believe is
like a year away.
We have to wait till 2024 for that. But yeah, I mean, like overall, like it was just so awesome being there and being like kind of and you're there with people that are they've all come because most of them are all there because they're just such huge fans.
The cosplay was fun to look at.
Yeah, there was like, that was cool being around like the different cosplay and lots of Mistborn cosplay, since that was like the kind of the
release party.
The release, the book that was coming out. But there was good Kaladin, lots of Sills. There was a really good Parshendi. Venli. I think it was Venli.
That was awesome.
Really good Venli there. Yeah, so that was just really cool. Just being around all that, and but yeah, it all culminated thanks to
my ticket randomly being picked out of over 5,000 people.
Thanks to God making sure you got picked.
Yeah, they did I guess so.
I mean, like, what the odds are just stacked against you.
So with Brandon, with having people tend to show up to these things and that they've started, I guess this is maybe a new thing or I don't know, but they were limiting the signing sessions that Brandon does. So
just because they would go insanely late if you didn't limit it.
So out of all the tickets that were done, they picked I don't remember if it was 150 or 300.
300.
Was it 300 and each got a person, or was it 150 and each person got it? Because they said 300 people.
No, it's 300 and then each person got so there was 600 people total.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So,
but out of
like over 5,000,
out of over 5,000 badges, 300 got chosen.
And mine I got chosen. I just saw the email one day and I was like, "Oh, what?"
I remember when you texted me, you're like, I was just like, "Oh, that's
I don't
crazy.
win things. I don't ever get anything."
I mean,
so I was like, and especially not knowing that was a thing.
You didn't know that was a thing?
No, I didn't know that was a thing. So I read the email. I was like, "What is this about?" Then I looked at it. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" So my ticket
this is better than winning the lottery.
My ticket did get chosen to do the signing session. So of course, obviously, I brought my brother in arms, Josh, over here.
That's me.
They were doing a signing session. My goodness, 1 personalized book and 3 books signed each.
Yeah.
So that is
3 items. It didn't have to be a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we sat and waited in line, and poor man.
I know.
He said one of his last signing sessions, he went till 5 a.m. He was telling it to the people in front of us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I'm assuming it probably went till at least 3 a.m.
Oh, gosh, I hope not.
2 to 3 a.m.
But you might be right.
So it was definitely a little bit of a wait. We sat and waited, but we got to go up. He did do a personalized thing. I think he wrote strength before weakness in my book.
Yeah,
which is awesome. got a picture. I'm pretty sure it was his son taking the pictures.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too. I wanted to say something. I wanted to say like, thanks for helping out. But I also was like not sure what his comfortability what would be with me even engaging him at all.
Yeah.
So I was just like, no, I won't do that.
But he was very nice. He was, he's Brandon Sanderson. He's just talking and signing away and everything like that. And he was a cool guy. It was very wild to meet him in person just because of reading all his books, being so invested in these books, Yeah. And it wasn't anything like crazy, like, oh, I'm going to pass out. But it was just, it was cool to meet him. And he did seem like a genuinely nice, genuine dude.
Well, and understand, like, I keep coming back to, like, it'd been 2 hours. Like, he'd been doing this for 2 hours when we got there.
And there were still
a lot of people left. And, I remember thinking, like, when we were down there waiting, I'm like, man, if I was up there, you could not look down and, like, look and see how many people were left because that would just deflate you. If you'd been 2 hours and you still had that many people left. But he was still, like, so energetic, so engaged with everyone. And this man does not drink caffeine. Like, he had no caffeine in his system. Like,
I can't imagine.
He wasn't like, knocking back Red Bulls. I mean, he was just completely fueled by the Cosmere or whatever. I don't know what.
As a person who relates to their energy drinks as Stormlight and drinks a lot of caffeine, it blows my mind that he drinks no caffeine.
Yeah. So he what did you say to him?
I kept my. I mean, I'm one of those people. I just felt so bad that he had to sit. He was gonna have such a long. So I didn't want to sit in a lot of time. I just said,
right.
I've read. I've really enjoyed reading your books, and it even spawned. It spawned this podcast, basically.
Right.
And so I brought that up, and he was just like, "Oh, that's cool. What's the name of it?" Told him the name of it, and he was like, "That's awesome," and everything that. And so I was just like, just thank you for being an author and just being you, I guess. Writing books. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it's along this line.
Do you remember what he said?
No, he was just like, that's awesome. He's like, that's so cool,
I remember hearing him say, like, that's a cool name. Like,
that's
when you told him the podcast name, he's like, that's a cool name. Like, I like that name. I remember him saying that and being like, oh, that's cool.
Yep. So, but that was it. It was really short, sweet, to the point. I wasn't gonna sit there and waste time. And then you were behind me,
right? So then I had, so because the way they like organized everything, they had us like have all our stuff that we were going to get signed, kind of like the books had like a little, the book that was going to get personalized had a little note in it. So he could open right to the page and like see what he was going to write in it. And then like the other stuff was just right on top. And so when I got up there, as he was finishing with Jeremiah, he saw what I had. And right on top, I had one of our business cards that we had printed to bring to the convention and hand out, which we did hand out about 10
out of 100,
out of 100 or more, maybe. I don't remember. Anyway, so he saw that business card. He's like, "Oh, there it is. There's the podcast." And so he took it, put it to the side because he thought, "Oh, they're giving me this."
It was really to be signed.
I was really like,
if Brandon Sanderson, if you happen to ever listen to this for some reason, it was intentionally meant to be signed. We're glad you took it.
Yeah,
but we weren't trying to like push our podcast on you.
Well, you were considering maybe trying to give him a card, but then you weren't sure. You were just going to go for it, like you were just going to wing it, and so I wasn't sure, if you had given it to him or not. So when he took it, I was just like, okay, and then he signed the bookmark and he signed the book, personalized the book, and he signed the book for Caleb. So that's just really cool. Like I have the picture of me with him. You can see our podcast card off to the side, and it's just awesome to know that. I don't know what happened to it after that.
Probably got tossed.
He may have forgotten about it. It may have gotten tossed. That's okay. It was just really cool that he took it, that he saw it. He knows our podcast exists.
Yeah, but if you ever decide to listen to it.
Yeah, Brandon, if you're listening for some reason,
we weren't necessarily intending to give it to you. It was just,
but we're glad you have it, and you're welcome to come on anytime.
You're welcome to come on anytime. If you decide to come, you're welcome to come on anytime. We'll happily have you.
But I was kind of, I was similar to you. I was kind of, racking my brain throughout this, wanting to walk the line between there's I need to make this count and say something meaningful, but I also don't want to be the guy that's like dragging it out, and and where he's like internally like, how long is the guy gonna take, or someone be like, hey, okay, you need to keep going, because and by the time we got there too, it was so late too. It was like we really felt that.
It was almost 12 o'clock when we got up on stage.
Yeah, we really felt that pressure of like, okay, let's not like milk this out, because like it's late and there's people are still waiting to see him, you know. So I just wanted to say, like, connect to him to like the fact that he's a big part of why I have gone so far in my pursuit of trying to become a published author. You know, I am a writer, but like when I was starting to want to be a writer, I was looking for resources of like to learn how to write better and like lectures and stuff. And somehow I in the course of finding different people's resources, they mentioned Brandon Sanderson a lot, and they mentioned that he had like lectures that were up for free that were BYU college lectures. And I started watching these lectures before I even read any of his books. So I wanted to I mentioned that to him. Just thank you for putting your lectures up online, because they were a big part. They're a big part of me feeling like confident in like it's possible that I could pursue this and make it happen. And I told him I was still working on it, and you know, but just thanks. And he looked up to me and he was like, that's awesome. And he gave me a fist bump, and I will never forget that. Like I can't even remember, you know, and I'm frustrated that I didn't like stop like right after I walked down the stage and just like lock into my brain exactly every little thing, every little detail of what happened. I wish I had done that just so I could remember it, just so I could tell the story and know with accuracy. But I will never forget that he fist bumped me after I told him that.
That's awesome.
I was trying to be an author. And then I also remembered right before I was like, the moment was gone. I was like, oh, my daughter said.
I know. I saw you. I was already down below the stage, because this was up on stage, walking downstairs. So I was already been downstairs and getting my stuff ready, because I had to grab my bag and all that. And I just remember turning around and hear you go, oh, by the way, my daughter says hi. And he just goes, tell your daughter I said hi.
At some point, Ellie had said, you know, because she's like, I'm trying to explain this to my kids. Like, why are you going to Utah? Why are you gone for 2 days? Oh, there's a writer that I really like. I'm going to go see a convention. And so she's like, say hi to your writer for me. And so I remember in line thinking like, okay, can't forget this, because I don't want to tell my daughter I forgot. And, so yeah, I did stop myself. That like if it had just been something I forgot, then I would have just been like, whatever. It's too late. It's too late. There's no going back. But because it was my 7-year-old or 6-year-old daughter, I was like, no. I have to do this.
I can't lie to her.
Yeah. So I was like, you know, my daughter says hi, and he was like, tell your daughter to say hi. So
that's awesome.
That's a really good way to like, that really encapsulates, for me, that whole experience of just like going through to get signed, get the signatures and everything kind of encapsulates, you know, how I feel about Brandon as an author, and felt about the whole event is just a very generous man.
Everyone was just super. The whole Dragonsteel team, shout out to all of them, because they did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keeping everyone engaged. They did the whole the clips.
Yeah, handing out the like in-world currency was really fun.
Just so fun, you know? And just all that different stuff, you know. And it was just really cool. I feel like everyone did such a good job, and just the generosity of everybody, and just the work that was put in, and not just them, but all the authors that came out, all the artists that came out. Everyone was just so genuine. Everyone was so nice.
And even like, you know, and I know we've talked about the cosplay, but shout out like thank you people that cosplay. Thank you people that like, because I was thinking about like, if I were to cosplay, how would I even get everything there?
Yeah.
You know, how would I like ship? You know, because I have a foam like shard blade, and I was thinking about that, but. You know, people went above and beyond, made sure that they could cosplay, and it made the experience better. I mean,
absolutely.
Being in that crazy long line for the release event and having a cryptic spren behind us, you know, there was someone who was dressed up as a cryptic spren. Like, it wasn't pattern, but it looked like that kind of spren.
Just
and just like that, like we're like going around the line, and there's like a cryptic spren like chasing after us, like trying to like not bump into things because of the way the costume was done. Like that kind of stuff is just like, it's just so fun, and it just like kind of makes the experience more, just elevates it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, thank you everyone that went. Thank you everyone panelists that participated, and thank you, you know, Brandon for like, you know, hitting it big, changing your career, changing like the course of your career changing when you did the Wheel of Time, and then like you turn around and just like keep wanting to give back to your community and people that are aspiring to things, greater things, artists, authors, and just all that, you know. It was just very awesome experience. And Stormlight 5 comes out 2024, and he said that that'll be, you know, coinciding with the next the Dragonsteel for that year. And I've talked to my wife about it, and she's like, we should just do a trip kind of like you guys did, and do a trip and have it
There you go.
have it kind of cross over with the Stormlight 5. I would love to be there for Stormlight 5 because
I will definitely
that'll
try.
be such a big
I will
thing.
try and be there. I don't know if we won't go next year.
Yeah,
But we'll
I couldn't do it
definitely-
2 years in a row
We'll
for sure.
definitely try and make our way there next year. So
Yeah,
who knows? If you listen to this and you go, maybe we'll be there in 2 years. And
And
real quick
we'll
too,
have blown up by then.
who is the author, the woman who did that first panel that we went to?
Oh yes, Mary Robinette Kowal.
Yes.
That was a cool
Shout
panel.
out to her too, because she recommended a bookstore local in Salt Lake City called
Oh, that's where you found that one.
oh my gosh, why can I not remember
Is
the
it
name?
Legendarium?
Yes, she shouted out Legendarium. Me and my wife went and checked it out on our last day in Salt Lake City. Coolest small little bookstore in the world, fully devoted to sci-fi fantasy. I don't think I saw another book in there. I mean, other than there's a bunch of D&D stuff, but it was all sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
In a coffee shop, wonderful coffee. And they do D&D sessions there every like Thursday.
That's awesome.
The chick who runs it, she just decided to do a bookstore. She's like, there's nothing around here, let's do it, and like that.
Yeah.
Sweet bookstore. So just shout out to her for recommending it. Shout out to Legendarium for being what you are. You know, it was really, really a cool place, and me and my wife really enjoyed going in there and talking to everybody, meeting everybody. So
While you've reminded me, shout out to Mary Robinette Call, because that session that we were in was the one that was right after the editing one that I couldn't make it into. And I just was like, okay, let's go to this one because it's a writer one. I had no idea really what it was going to be. It's called Barriers to Writing. And it was actually a really encouraging kind of therapeutic session to kind of encourage people who are trying to write or just create, you know, art or whatever, to, you know, how to kind of take in your environment and consider how you can kind of hack your brain to make sure that you can get quality time of writing and creating things, you know. So I really appreciated that. Kind of like calmed me down, because I was like, oh man, I didn't get to go to this session. And then like this next session was actually a really like therapeutic, like,
I also really enjoyed that
you know, experience. So
it was really good.
shout out to her as well.
But
I think that's going to be it for us. Although I'm sure we will be like, you know, mining awesome things from this experience, you know, for long after.
oh yeah,
But that's just a little distillation of what we came away with. And thank you for listening.
thank you very much.
As we say, this has been Bridge of Two podcast.
A far, far away bridge. Adios, amigos.
My brain just froze. I'm like,
Cultural divide.